order. Please rise for the prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance. Our Father, who art in heaven, as a body we congregate in these council chambers. We pray for thy divine guidance, that we may do all things well, according to thy holy will. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I request that we all remain standing in respect for and remembrance of those who died at the hands of violence throughout our country this week, especially the 5 police officers in Dallas. If we could have a moment of silence. Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Present.
Mr. Clark.
Here.
Mrs. Stickley.
Here.
Mr. Blair.
Here.
Mrs. Hannerhan.
Here.
Mr. Sanker.
Here.
Mr. Mumper.
Here.
All members present are here. We have several requests to amend the agenda. Get your pens ready. The first is to move introductory readings of resolutions to following the third reading of ordinances. So we would read the introductory readings of resolutions prior to the ordinances, and we would reverse the order of those resolutions so that resolution number 2 would now become resolution number 1, and number 1 would become number 2. That would be followed by the introductory reading of ordinances. We have 2 communications that were on our desks as we arrived tonight. The first is a letter from Chief Kramer regarding the request to address council. That would be communication 3. Communication 4 is a letter from Tim Brown regarding the Ohio Department of Liquor Control liquor license transfer request. Keith Moore, our law director, has asked that both his administrative report and his letter requesting executive session be moved to the last communication. So that would be following Tim Brown's letter about the Ohio Department of Liquor Control. And I would suggest that let's go ahead and do that first. Mr. Mumper.
I move we amend the agenda exactly with what
I think you need to repeat that. Is there a second? Seconded by Mrs. Hannerhan. Under comments, I would say that since the letter from Chief Kramer, assuming that this all passes, that since the letter from Chief Kramer is about the request to address council, that if this is approved, that we then move that request up to request to address council on agenda items without any objection. So the motion on the floor is to amend the agenda as previously stated. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hannerhan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We have the minutes of the June 28th, 2016 meeting. Mr. Clark.
Move to approve the minutes as of read.
Seconded by Mr. Blair. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hannerhan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Without objection, then we would move, let's go ahead and just read Chief Kramer's letter. We'll move Chief Kramer's letter up to next on the agenda and then have him come forward and speak.
Dear Mr. Brown, I am requesting for myself or a representative to speak at council concerning vest replacement at tomorrow's council meeting. Sincerely, William Kramer, Chief of Police, City of Norwood.
Mr. Mumper.
I move the letter be received and filed and the request be honored.
Second by Mr. Bonsall. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hannerhan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Chief Kramer?
Madam President, Mr. Mayor, Council, other elected officials, thanks for the opportunity to address Council this evening. Pretty much every time I come to you, I mention, and I do mean this, I know you find yourselves in a difficult position. I don't envy the position you're in, but you guys are the only ones that can help us at this time. This year, I've come to you and asked for funds for 4 things: to purchase police vehicles, citations, ammunition, and protective vests for our officers. These requests are not luxury items. They are basics that we need to do our job, period. If you want us to walk to respond to runs, we aren't far from that. We are out of citations. All that we have left is what the officers are carrying in their duty bags. We will soon not be able to issue citations at all. We have officers at this time who are only issuing citations for auto accidents and more egregious violations because they know we will soon be out. My main point for talking to you tonight is we need protective vests for 17 officers. These officers, most of them have vests that will expire in August, and I will not allow an officer on the street in an expired vest. A few things you need to know. Once the vest is expired, it is no longer rated to stop around. By pulling these officers off the street and putting them on desk duty, it will cost an estimated $8,500 in overtime for just a 7-day period. By doing this, we will have to shut down both criminal investigations and the drug task force. By pulling those officers from those 2 specialized units, we can slightly reduce the amount of overtime, but keep in mind that only 2 of those officers from the specialized units have vests. The rest of them also have vests that will expire, so it will not make that much of a difference. By shutting down criminal investigations and the drug task force, it will make us far less effective. Also, I wanted to mention that we have taken a significant amount of guns off the street this year, more than I can recall in recent memory. Officers are at risk. Ultimately, you have a fiduciary responsibility to make sure that we have the equipment and supplies we need to operate, particularly equipment that directly affects our safety. I'm asking that you find a way to get this done. I thank you for your time, and I can answer any questions if you have them.
Any questions of the chief? Comments? Mr. Bonsall?
So, Chief, I really do appreciate you being here today. So I was just curious, are there drug fund monies that could be used to buy these vests if we absolutely had to, for the officer safety?
The drug fund money is there to, and they make it very clear, the Department of Justice, each year I have to submit to them a certification of what we spent the money on. The money is meant to support, not supplant. So because there is an ordinance that you will buy vests, I could not do that and certify it to the Department of Justice.
Mr. Sanker?
Yes, Madam President. This is not a topic that we've taken lightly, especially myself. I've been wrestling with this for a frickin' month, looking at ways to potentially move something around. I just haven't found a good, solid solution. I know that's not a good answer, but it's not that nobody's been working on this. I mean, I've been in not only the auditor's office, the treasurer's office, and trying to figure out a way to fund at least the vests and the tickets. I can't write you a check. We don't have a check to write at this point in time. We have discussed a few other options. Mr. Sis, he's been out working out of town the last week and a half. We have been in communication via phone and even again, twice a day. We have a few different ideas that they're not any good, but that possibly can make it work, but I don't know. I can't tell you tonight that I'm going to buy these things tomorrow. Can't tell you that. But I sent a note to the clerk's office. We are going to have another finance meeting on Tuesday. There's not just this item, but there's multiple other departments that are not quite in this need for protective equipment. But funds are not there to issue things for these departments as well. It's not gone unnoticed. Had spent a lot of time on it, and I'm not saying more than I should, because I don't mind doing it. It's just more than I like to, spend on it. I wish it was an easier solution. We'll try and figure something out, which we have been. But I can't tell you tonight that I can buy them tomorrow. I have a better idea on Tuesday once we run through a couple of these other things to see if these scenarios may work, whether we're able to do a couple manipulative things for this to happen. But I can't guarantee. I know in light of everything going on in Dallas, it's even more in the forefront than ever before. I don't like being put on this stage with this, even though I know it's a critical part of your department. However, this, phone calls all day, that's fine. We'll deal with that. But, if we, want to negotiate this in the media is one thing. But we're working on it. We have not turned a blind eye or ear to this situation. The last thing anybody on this council or administration would want to do is to put somebody out there in harm's way. And at all. And I swore to myself I wasn't going to bring this up, but, letters, about, well, it's going to cost you all this overtime. And I know it will. However, the only time overtime is brought up is when it's to the advantage of the individual bringing it up. We've spent in the first 6 months of the year in your department $150,000 in overtime. It didn't look like there was any real cooperation or any attempt to kind of reduce or keep those down. 150 times 2, $300,000 would be what we would spend in overtime, one department. We're lucky to have an increase in earnings tax of $200,000 this year. So we spend $300,000 in overtime, we bring in an extra $200,000, then people wonder why we can't do anything else. It just kind of a sore subject. I wish that it wasn't that way, but it is. There's, in my mind, from what I've seen, there's been no attempt to actually curtail that. But I don't know. I don't work there. I don't run the department. I don't handle that. I don't oversee how you spend the money for the department. That's not my job.
So then you don't know?
You're exactly right.
I've offered, and Mr. Sanker, I know that you want to do the right thing. I've offered to sit down with you through the emails. We could talk about what we've done. We've been short officers. That's why we have overtime. I'll be glad to sit down with you anytime and talk about it. I just don't know if it's fair for you to bring it up right now when you don't know.
So, but just part of the whole daggone scenario. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions for the chief?
Thank you.
We do have one other request to address council on agenda items, and that is Dave Bollinger. Would you come forward, please give us your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes to address council.
Good evening. My name is Dave Bollinger. My address is 7465 Lakota Springs Drive in Westchester, Ohio. Mr. Mayor, Council, appreciate the opportunity to speak here. I guess the only reason I'm here is, look, I know the city's got problems, money problems. Like you said, you just can't write a check. I can. I will write a check right now tonight for the cost of the vest. If council will guarantee me I can get my money back sometime within the next 6 to 8 months. That gives you a lot of time to come up with it. We get the officers on the street right away. I have no problem doing this. I don't live in Norwood. Norwood's still got my heart. I love this place. I'll write the check tonight, say the word, and it's done. Problem's over. You wanna do it?
Mr. Sanker?
I can't authorize that.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
I said I can't authorize that tonight to say how we get you paid back is the only thing, but I would be happy to talk to you about it, Dave. You know that.
Very well. I'm willing to write the check out any time. You give me the okay, I'll do it right now. We'll get these officers out there and they'll be safe. We can't let them out there with the vest, without the vest.
I agree.
Okay.
Mr. Bollinger, just to be clear, and maybe y'all can hear me a little bit better than Mr. Sanker, because my mic seems to be a little louder, is that Mr. Sanker said, we appreciate the offer, but he can't authorize the reimbursement within 6 months. There has to be, it's the way government works. It's a slow process, but it's the best way I know.
Can you do it
When money
within a
comes in, there has to be a change in the
Can you do
certificate
it
of
within a year?
estimated resources.
Is
It
a
has
year
to
enough
be
time?
appropriated. So I think what the best way to handle would be, I get the impression that they're gonna have a finance meeting next week on Tuesday, and that would
Okay.
be very appropriate.
I think you've probably got my number, I think, Joe. I think.
Madam President,
Mr. Sanker?
it's just a matter of David working out the logistics of
Right.
something like that.
I'm sorry, I still can't hear you.
You have to
I
work
thought
out
it-
the logistics
It's
of it
about
and
working
the
out
paperwork.
It's just not a, I write you a check.
I
you
don't
write me
need
a-
paper, I don't need paperwork, I don't need a contract.
Unfortunately, the
Okay.
government does.
Okay.
Or
Okay.
fortunately.
From
the
my end,
government
it's not
does.
necessary. You tell me you'll do it, that's good enough with me.
Mrs. Hanahan?
I'd just like to say thank you, Mr. Bollinger. It's a very generous offer, and it's appreciated by everyone in the city.
Look, it's not even about generosity. Norwood's been good to me. It's been good to me my entire life. It's still good to me, okay? I'm able to do it, I'm willing to do it. And the cops mean a lot to me. So,
Thank you.
okay? Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bollinger. We do have other requests to address council, but they are not on agenda items, so we will save those for later on in the evening. We'll move on. There are no reports of standing committees of council. Third reading of resolutions is a resolution adopting the 2017 tax budget. Mr. Clark,
Move to have the third reading.
seconded by Mr. Sanker. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hanahan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Please have the third reading.
Resolution adopting 2017 tax budget.
Mr. Sanker.
Recommend the resolution be passed, or the
Sec-
ordinance be passed, pardon me.
Seconded by Mr. Mumper. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hanahan. Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We'll move on to introductory readings of resolutions. Before I do, there is a request to address council on agenda items, but I don't think we need to have this. Mr. Moore and Chris Calvert are both here, who can give us information on the next two resolutions and three ordinances. So if you would come forward, thank you.
Hi, my name's Keith Moore. I live at 4126 Carter Avenue here in Norwood. It's part of the deal. And this is Chris Calvert from the Greater Cincinnati Energy Alliance. I always have trouble with that. The next 5 things on the agenda, boy, are an awful lot of paperwork. And the agreement that goes with them, the agreements, the attachments that go with them, are brutally difficult to read and try to figure out what the heck is going on. It took me a very long time. I actually, and I've said this over and over, I finally broke down and bought reading glasses because it just broke me. But basically, I just want to, there's a lot of paperwork involved, but essentially this is it. And partly the paperwork is because it's a legislative program that was designed for something entirely different, but the state legislature allowed energy improvements on private projects to become a part of this other structure. But basically, here's the way it works. The property owner of the office buildings across the street is saying, please raise my property taxes. Add a special assessment amount to what I pay in property tax. And then the city will do that. Hamilton County will collect that. They will send that money to us along with the regular property tax payments and a breakdown of what it is. The part of that money that is the special assessment will go to pay off a loan that's paying for energy improvements projects on that property. And I made an attachment. I put this on your desk. It's kind of the list of the things. It's all HVAC stuff. It's going to save energy costs for the building. It's also going to upgrade their facilities there. The city's involvement is just to pass the money through. The developers want to do it because if it's a part of what they pay in property tax, then the lenders are more confident they'll get paid back, so they get a lower interest rate on the money they borrowed to cover the cost of the project. It's 19 years, I think, that this will be on. There's a lot of paperwork here to say the city thinks this is necessary to improve the city, to say, oh yes, we want to put special assessments on, yes, we'll agree to the agreements, yes, we're going to put the assessment on, and there's another one, and off the top of my head, but that's essentially what this is. The property owner's asking us to increase their property taxes. That increase is going to pass through the city to the lender. It may go through the auditor, it may go directly to the lender, it may go through the ECID, but whatever. It's basically going to pass through the city, go to the lender to pay back the loan to pay for these improvements. That's the sum and substance of what we have in front of you. It's a ridiculous amount of paperwork for what it does, but that's essentially what it does. The city is, there's no money being spent by the city other than my time and Tim Gary's time and the auditor's time. We're not on the hook for anything. There's no liability to us. The documents are very clear about all of that, and so that's what it is. And I'm going to turn it over to Chris, who actually knows how these things work, and see if there's anything he wants to add.
My name is Chris Calvert. I'm Chief Financial Officer of the Greater Cincinnati Energy Alliance. Just wanted to thank Council for the opportunity to answer any questions that you have. Wanted to thank Mr. Moore and Mr. Gary, Mr. Mumford, and Mr. Williams for their support and guidance through the process. Effectively, my organization is funded primarily via a grant from the Department of Energy, the U.S. Department of Energy, to administer programs such as the one that we're seeking approval for here. Mr. Moore's description is right on. We have brought third-party capital to Norwood. It's a pleasure to be able to finance what is a very important project for Norwood, the improvement of the Central Park buildings, so that CDK can move into those. That is a very important project, not just for Norwood, but for the region, which is a really great compliment for Norwood. So just wanted to, again, thank everybody for their support from the city. And if you have any questions for me, I'm glad to answer them.
Questions? Mr. Sanker?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Are there any other companies or areas within the region that have this special energy assessment?
Yes, both the City of Cincinnati and the City of Blue Ash and the City of Covington have used this financing in the exact same way.
Mr. Bonsall?
So once we pass this legislation, will other companies, if they want to do something similar, will they be able to utilize this improvement district?
Yes, absolutely. So it's an economic development tool that can then be used for any commercial property owner. They would have the opportunity to find a capital source. You work with the same capital source that's funding this and use the exact same mechanism. And because the infrastructure is there, it actually will be more efficient the second, third, fourth, fifth times, as many times as it wants to be used. So we think it's a great program in the sense that it's something you can then, from an economic development perspective, offer to other commercial property owners in an effort to allow them to improve their property. Thank you.
Just to add on that, actually I want to give credit to Mr. Mumper and the mayor and Jerry Stoker. Yesterday was the meeting of the board of directors of the Norwood Energy Improvement District. And because that's in place, this process is available for other owners. One of the benefits of this, as opposed to a TIF deal, earnings tax abatement deal, is we don't have to sit down and figure out, well, is this a good deal? Is it a good company? All of that is done up front by Chris and his group. The property owners put together the package, go to the Greater Cincinnati Energy Alliance. They evaluate it, whether it's a good idea or not, if the numbers are going to work. They find the lenders, help find the lenders for it. So when it comes to the Norwood board, and Norwood board would then say, oh yeah, we like this, and then it comes to council, all of that stuff has been worked out. It's not a question of, I don't know, is this worth doing, is it not? We have a complete package in place to decide whether the city wants to approve it or not. And that's one of the great things about this energy improvement thing as opposed to some of the other economic development things we've done.
And Mr. Mumford told me he didn't have nearly enough paperwork from the meeting yesterday, right?
We'll wave that around.
Yeah.
I brought my own copy too, so.
Mr. Mayor, were you at the meeting as well? Did you want to comment?
Yes, it was a really good meeting. What we have to understand about this is a part of a package. You know, we've given incentive, we've had discussions to get companies in there because we have to compete. You know, there's the TIFs and there's the other incentive packages that we come to council for clearances, and if it's a good deal. This just is one more tool to put in the box as an incentive as we compete to bring these companies in. CDK, for example, is coming in, started with 500, there'll be over 1,000 people. This was a lot of discussion and a lot of effort that went into that. This is part of that package that CDK will benefit from, and with all the equipment they're putting in, HVA systems, the whole 9 yards. There's a company in the back that's moving into MedPace building. If you drive by there's hundreds of thousands of dollars in generators and electric equipment going in. They ran new electric lines. Duke ran new electric lines from Forest Avenue, which are I think they're 13,000 volt lines that are above Siemens there. Those lines are run over, and it's now feeding into MedPace. That will be a growing business down the road. This is, once again, part of those packages that we can offer. And we have the expertise, for these projects. We had a very lengthy discussion on it. There were some issues that we're still in discussions about that John and I and the gentleman from HCDC had questions on. So it was a very productive meeting. And it's, once again, it's just part of the package that we're using to draw in companies.
Thank you.
Any other comments?
Madam President?
Yes.
Just to add one thing, I would request that council suspend suspend the rules and have all three readings on this tonight so we can move this project forward as quickly as possible.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So the first resolution that we will consider is a resolution approving the petition for special assessments for special energy improvement projects under Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 1710, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Mumper.
I move we suspend the rules and have all three readings.
Second by Mrs. Stickley. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hanahan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Please have all three readings.
A resolution approving the petition for special assessments for special energy improvement projects under Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 1710, and declaring an emergency. A resolution approving the petition for special assessments for special energy improvement projects under Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 1710, and declaring an emergency. A resolution approving the petition for special assessments for special energy improvement projects under Ohio Revised Code, Chapter 1710, and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Bonso.
I move that the resolution be passed.
Seconded by Mr. Mumper. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hanahan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Next is a resolution approving the necessity of acquiring, constructing, and improving certain public improvements in the City of Norwood, Ohio, in cooperation with the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District, and declaring an emergency. Mr. Mumper.
I move we suspend the rules and have all three readings.
Seconded by Mrs. Stickley. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hannerhan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Please have all three readings.
A resolution approving the necessity of acquiring, constructing, and improving certain public improvements in the city of Norwood, Ohio, in cooperation with the City of Norwood, Ohio Special Energy Improvement District and declaring an emergency. A resolution approving the necessity of acquiring, constructing, and improving certain public improvements in the city of Norwood, Ohio, in cooperation with the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District and declaring an emergency. A resolution approving the necessity of acquiring, constructing, and improving certain public improvements in the city of Norwood, Ohio, in cooperation with the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mumper,
Move the resolution be passed.
seconded by Mrs. Stickley. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hannerhan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We'll move on to introductory readings of ordinances. The first is an ordinance determining to proceed with the acquisition, construction, and improvement of certain public improvements in the city of Norwood, Ohio, in cooperation with the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District, and declaring an emergency. Mrs. Stickley,
I move that we suspend the rules and have all three readings.
seconded by Mr. Blair. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hannerhan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Please have all three readings.
An ordinance determining to proceed with the acquisition, construction, and improvement of certain public improvements in the city of Norwood, Ohio, in cooperation with the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District and declaring an emergency. An ordinance determining to proceed with the acquisition, construction, and improvement of certain public improvements in the city of Norwood, Ohio, in cooperation with the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District and declaring an emergency. An ordinance determining to proceed with the acquisition, construction, and improvement of certain public improvements in the city of Norwood, Ohio, in cooperation with the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mumper,
Move the ordinance be passed.
seconded by Mrs. Hannerhan. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hannerhan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We'll move on to introductory readings of ordinance number 2, an ordinance levying special assessments for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, and improving certain public improvements in the city of Norwood in cooperation with the Norwood Energy Special Improvement District and declaring an emergency. Mr. Clark,
Move to suspend the rules and have all three readings of this ordinance.
second by Mr. Blair. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hannerhan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Please have all three readings.
An ordinance levying special assessments for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, and improving certain public improvements in the city of Norwood in cooperation with the Norwood Energy Special Improvement District and declaring an emergency. An ordinance levying special assessments for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, and improving certain public improvements in the city of Norwood in cooperation with the Norwood Energy Special Improvement District and declaring an emergency. An ordinance levying special assessments for the purpose of acquiring, constructing, and improving certain public improvements in the city of Norwood in cooperation with the Norwood Energy Special Improvement District and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mumper,
Move the ordinance be passed.
seconded by Mr. Clark. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hannerhan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. The last ordinance is an ordinance authorizing and approving an energy project cooperative agreement by and among the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District, PBY Partners LLC, and Greenworks Lending LLC, providing for the financing of a special energy improvement project in the city, authorizing and approving a special assessment agreement by and between the city, the county treasurer, PBY Partners LLC, and the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District, authorizing and approving related agreements and declaring an emergency. I'm glad you have to read this 3 times. I think you succeeded. Mrs. Stickley,
I move we suspend the rules and have all 3 readings.
seconded by Mr. Bonso. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzo.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hanrahan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Please have all 3 readings.
An ordinance authorizing and approving an energy project cooperative agreement by and among the City of Norwood, Ohio Special Improvement District, PBY Partners LLC, and Greenworks Lending LLC, providing for the financing of a special energy improvement project in the city, authorizing and approving a special assessment agreement by and between the city, the county treasurer, PBY Partners LLC, and the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District, authorizing and approving related agreements and declaring an emergency. An ordinance authorizing and approving an energy project cooperative agreement by and among the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District, PBY Partners LLC, and Greenworks Lending LLC, providing for the financing of a special energy improvement project in the city, authorizing and approving a special assessment agreement by and between the city, the county treasurer, PBY Partners LLC, and the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District, authorizing and approving related agreements and declaring an emergency. An ordinance authorizing and approving an energy project cooperative agreement by and among the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District, PBY Partners LLC, and Greenworks Lending LLC, providing for the financing of a special energy improvement project in the city, authorizing and approving a special assessment agreement by and between the city, the county treasurer, PBY Partners LLC, and the City of Norwood, Ohio Energy Special Improvement District, authorizing and approving related agreements and declaring an emergency.
Mr. Mumper,
Move the ordinance be passed.
seconded by Mrs. Hanrahan. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzo.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hanrahan. Mr. Sanker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. Do you need a drink of water?
I'm good.
We'll move on to administration reports, which we have deferred to last on the agenda. So we'll move on to other requests to address council. And I'll read these in the order in which they were handed to me. Tom McCabe? You'll give us your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you, Madam President. My name is Thomas McCabe. I live at 5319 Wakefield Place. I'm here as the Vice President of the Norwood Professional Firefighters Local 445. Norwood Professional Firefighters Local 445 has a long history of working with the city to cooperatively tackle issues that affect both parties. Yet I stand here today in an unfortunate situation. Members of this local have had contractually defined benefits denied to them. This delays anywhere from 3 months to 6 months. We understand that the city had a responsibility retired bond debt that significantly impacted its financial status. Unfortunately, no one has attempted to provide Local 445 any updates other than a conciliatory maybe this month, let alone specifics of a solution that will make our membership whole. This local has had to initiate any and all conversation regarding the status of these items. These contractually negotiated items are also a legal obligation of the city. Yet a decision has been made that it is okay with you, the leadership of the city, to balance the books on the backs of its employees without any input from those affected. Members have received dental and optical services while having a reasonable expectation that those expenses would be reimbursed from the employee's own dental optical accounts. Members have made specific plans to sell back their vacation time in lieu of taking time off from the department. For example, My family has to make a tuition payment the first week in May. Significant one. I elect to sell my vacation time knowing that we are required to make that tuition payment in May. And I am contractually due that buyback on April 15th. I had to make the decision to sell those days in October of 2015. It's July 12th, and I still haven't received it. Bear in mind, that is a single example among many of the membership of Local 445. I am standing before you representing the Norwood Professional Firefighters Local 445. We are here asking for you, the city leadership, for a plan. One with defined actions that will honor the labor agreement that is in place. One that includes input from those very employees whom are directly affected by your actions. This city cannot continue to just push off contractually negotiated items. Please honor your obligations accordingly. I'll be happy to take any questions here or privately. Thank you for your time.
Does anyone have any questions of Mr. McCabe while he's up here?
Thank you, Madam
Thank you,
President.
Mr. McCabe. The next request is from Lemuel James. Again, if you'll give us your name and address, and you'll have 5 minutes to address council.
Thank you, Madam President. Can you guys hear me? This one looks like. No? Okay. Well, my name is Lemuel James. I live at 1830 Hopkins Avenue. Hello, everyone. My name is Lemuel James. I live at 1830 Hopkins Avenue here in Norwood. I'm the youngest son of Pastor Sonny James of Keep It Real Worldwide Ministries. Most people know who he is. I am also a part of our Norwood Police Explorers program with the Norwood Police Department. My father couldn't be here today, so I came in his place. Pastor James recently put together a very positive event on May 27th, hosted by our local YMCA. As you all know, and even if you don't know, it was a very huge success. Well, we want to do more of these positive activities for our community. Recently, City Council supported a gymnastics center moving into the Richard E. Linder YMCA. Like my father, I truly support that program coming to our Norwood community. However, it really limits the options for our events that have proven to be very positive and well received by everyone. People stop my dad on the street all the time and ask him, when is the next event? We're asking the City Council to help Pastor James lead the charge to open up our Norwood Recreation Building so that our awesome events can continue. Please. Plus, we are financial partners with the YMCA, so it would also open options for the YMCA basketball programs so they don't lose their very organized basketball leagues. Pastor James has been talking to our good friend and Councilman Andrew Clark, and we believe that if we all work together on this, it will answer a huge demand that is sorely needed. I myself, as a young man, can tell you how important a safe, monitored place like the rec center can be for us. Pastor James has a plan that won't hurt our city's budget, but provide a much-needed answer in the safest way. Please partner with my dad and the YMCA one more time and help create more lifetime memories that help shape who we are. My name is Lemuel James, and one day I hope to be the Chief of Police here in Norwood. These type of programs are an absolute must to help unify and advance our increasingly diverse community. For more details of the plan Pastor James has, please feel free to contact him at 513-487-8843 or email him at pastorsonnyjames@gmail.com or contact City Councilman Andrew Clark. I love Norwood. I think Pastor James is on point and has the experience to help take my generation into the next era in a positive direction. Please help me make this happen now by calling a state of emergency for his plan. My dad knows what he's doing. God bless us all, and thank you.
Any comments? Mr. Blair?
Thank you, Lemuel.
How old are you, Lemuel?
I'm 15. I just turned 15 today.
Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
And I don't know that at 15 I would have had the courage to do what you just did today. So I'm just going to personally thank you for coming forward and saying what you did tonight.
I don't know why you'd want to be chief. Just my opinion.
Andy, I'm sorry, did you want to say something, Andy?
Yeah, I thank you so much for being here tonight. I have spoken with Pastor James. We're interested in potentially partnering with the community center to open up the basketball court during the day. He's got some plans to have some chaperones and things there, so we'll be discussing that with the city and seeing if that's a potential possibility. So that's sort of what you were speaking on. So thanks for being here.
Any other comments? Mr. Bonsall?
Yeah, I just want to thank you for being here as well. I think the only other reason why 15-year-olds would be hanging out at City Hall is that it's now a Pokestop on Pokemon Go.
Pokemon Go.
So there's all kinds of people hanging out at the church across from my house because it's a Pokemon gym, I've heard. So anyways, thanks for being here. You did a great job, and I'm sure we'll all be listening to see what happens. So.
Wow, thank you very much.
And I just
Any other-
downloaded the app last night too. So.
There you go. Excellent.
All right, thank
Thanks
you.
again.
Thank you.
Next is Tim Ulrich. And again, if you'll give us your name and address, then you'll have 5 minutes to address council.
My name
Welcome.
is Timothy Ulrich. I live at 2333 Highland Avenue. Excuse me. I have a issue with the city right now because on the first, I got 2 issues. I had about 6 till the police chief got up here. So, but the 2 issues are on the 1st of July, there was a possum hit on Highland Avenue and it crawled up onto the sidewalk. And on the 2nd day, I called the city of Cincinnati. They said call Norwood, so I did, and it's still there. My next door, excuse me, my next door neighbors is a two-family unit. They both called, and it's still there. On day 8, 9, and 10, I couldn't even sit out on the porch because of the smell. People were walking on the other side of the street, and there was no sidewalk on the other side of the street. That's a hazard because there's a lot of kids that walk up through there. And then on the other side, there's a hillside on Highland, and there's a lot of dead trees. On the 4th, a tree came down in the middle of the road. 2 years ago, a friend of mine who lives in the apartment building I live at, his car, a tree came down on his car. That hillside needs to be cleaned off.
Mr. Mayor, are those hills private property? Can you comment on that?
So far back, then believe it or not, the railroad's got a right of way. The problem you have with that hillside, you're never gonna stop that hillside from moving. You clear that hillside out, and that hillside will be in your front room. So cut everything down, and you will have a rock collection in your front room. You
Well,
can't clear that hillside.
I was looking at that. I've done special projects with different companies in the greater Cincinnati area. If you go back 5 to 10 foot and build a wall, and you can widen the street.
I don't know who you've worked for, and I don't know who you've talked to, but when you get a real engineering degree, they will tell you, do not do that. Look at the Parkway in Cincinnati. They put a wall up. The hill keeps coming over the wall. You're not gonna stop it. It's gonna keep moving. So the best thing you can do is keep up with it. You clear that hillside off of the growth, and like I said, that hillside will be in your front room. So, this has been looked at for 50 years. And the best thing you can do is keep moving it back. You're not gonna stop that hillside from moving. You can build a wall all you want, and that wall will come down. We've had engineers look at it for 20 years. Soil engineers, people who have degrees in it, and have told you, don't do that, don't build a wall. And so, and it's not moving all over, it's just parts of it that move on Highland Avenue. Part of it's moving and part of it's not, and there's no way to say for sure.
And some needs to be done or a special fund or something for people's cars that when the trees come down, hit their cars. Like a friend of mine smashed his windshield. He had to come up with $600 deductible, and it was enough damage. It was about $400. Had to come out of his pocket. He's on unlimited income.
Here, I'll give you one more fact and then I'll drop it. Understand one thing, look this up, per capita now, Hamilton County suffers more damage from landslides than any place in the country.
Oh, I believe that.
That's a fact.
Oh, yeah.
So, and that's because of the shale and everything else. It's always moving towards that river, and you're not gonna stop it.
Okay, is there anything we can do?
Well, we've looked at it, we'll continue to look at it, we keep moving it back, but I'm not gonna clear that hillside.
Okay.
And I'm reasonably certain that most of that is private property. I did not know that the railroad had a right of way through
And
there.
can we get the possum, it's still there, the carcass.
And where is the address of that?
It's, well, I live at 2333. It's the next house up, going towards,
Lower or higher
Ridge.
numbers?
I'm not sure, because I don't.
Which way is it heading east?
going
If it's
towards-
east, it's a higher.
Towards Ridge?
Yes.
It's a higher number.
A higher number, okay. And you're at 2333, so,
Yes.
all right. All right,
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you
do
for
that,
that.
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. We are no other request to address council. We'll move on to unfinished business. Any unfinished business? I'm gonna say, are you gonna announce it or am I gonna announce it? Mr. Bumper?
I want to thank the mayor for whatever you did to get Cincinnati to fix Highland Avenue.
It's open.
Fantastic.
And it's open.
Fantastic. It's the best it's ever looked.
You know, if I was a cheap and shallow politician, I'd take credit for it. I have nothing to do with it. They finally got tired of hearing the complaints, and we're glad because we even fixed it once because we were hearing the complaints.
And I saw the notice on Facebook that it was open.
I went through last night, so I can attest that it is open. It is very well done too, so. Yeah. Great, thank you. Any other unfinished business? We'll move on to new business. Any new business? Mr. Sanker?
Yes, Madam President. I sent a note earlier today to the clerk's office about posting request for a finance committee meeting on Tuesday. And who all can make it, but Mr. Stith will be back in town by then, and but I didn't know if 6 or 6:30 would be better for everyone. 6 o'clock then.
Okay. So finance committee meeting here in council chambers, Tuesday, July 19th at 6 o'clock.
Yes, ma'am. We were going to have it on Monday, but there's another meeting on Monday.
Okay. And the purpose is to finance, is just review of finances. Appropriations, okay. Thank you. Any other new business? Mrs. Hanrahan?
Yes, we will be having a housing and health meeting on July 18th, Monday night, council chamber, 6:30, to discuss zoning issues.
Thank you, Mrs. Hanrahan. Mrs. Hanrahan?
Thank you, Madam President. Just wanted to let everyone know that UC Health Mobile Diagnostics will be at the community center September the 7th at 9 o'clock for mammograms. And if you're interested in having one done, you should be calling 584-9765. Wait a minute, I said that wrong. 584-7465.
There should be a flyer on your desks too.
Okay.
The 584 blue.
No, pink.
So September 7th at 9 a.m. at the community center.
And you do have to call in advance.
584 pink.
Yes.
Thank you, Mrs. Hanrahan. Any other new business? Mr. Sanker?
Madam President, yes, the July 26th, the Norwood Day Parade here in
That was going to
Norwood.
be my next thing.
Oh, coming down Montgomery Road, starts up by Kroger gas station and finishes up down on, right past the firehouse by the Old Quality Inn, Foundation Bank. And then on the 27th, on that Wednesday, is Norwood Day at Old Coney. And the Norwood Business and Professional Women's Society take care of running that. And they do have, I believe, tickets available for that day. So if everyone can take advantage of that, and if you want to elaborate on the details.
No, well, I just wanted to say that the 27th is our next well, we normally don't meet the second meeting in July, and it's because of the Norwood Day Parade. So we can't have a meeting when the parade's going on. So we'll plan on canceling that meeting. So our next regularly scheduled meeting would be in August, whenever the second Tuesday in August is. But yeah, Businesswomen is, I think, there should be tickets on sale. If not already, you should be able to get them soon here in City Hall. My guess is in the auditor's office from Jane Grody, or in the, you can check in the treasurer's office. I think it's $19 for adults to get in, and that includes your parking, your admission. There's bingo, it includes everything in the park, your rides, the swimming pool, all the amenities from Coney. And my understanding is there's a new water feature at Coney this year that might be attractive to children. So we will not have our regularly scheduled council meeting on the 26th in honor of, so people can participate and take part in the Norwood Day Parade. Any other new business? Mr. Bonsall?
Will there be an administration report from the mayor today?
No.
Okay. Yes, that's perfect. That's exactly what I was asking. So I just didn't know if you had any update on MSD or if there were any further progress with changes or...
I'm still trying to get a meeting set up with the county. After the last article in the paper and what's going on today, I'll go on the record. I don't know why somebody is not going to go to jail, but that's just a personal opinion. But I'm still trying to get a meeting set up with the county. They own it, and I've got a few proposals that I think Donna and I have talked that I think only the county can authorize. I'm still of the belief that if you sit around and do nothing, then that's what you'll get. I've got some ideas, and they've been well received in other areas. I'm just going to try to set it up with the county and pass it on, and we'll see what we can do. I'm not giving up on it by a long shot.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other new business? All right. We'll move on to communications. We will deal with the one from Keith Moore later. We have a letter from Mayor Williams regarding mayor's court fines.
Dear Madam President and members of council, enclosed, please find the report for Norwood Mayor's Court for the month of June 2016. Should you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me. Sincerely, Thomas F. Williams, Mayor, City of Norwood.
Mr. Clark.
Move to receive and file the letter.
Seconded by Mr. Blair. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hanrahan.
Yes.
Mr. Senker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We've already read the one from Chief Kramer. We'll move on to the letter from Tim Brown regarding the Ohio Department of Liquor Control.
Dear members of council, attached is a letter from Liquor Control regarding Gary Rowe Enterprises, DBA Brown Bar, 502 Vine Street, Hamilton, Ohio, requesting transfer of liquor license A-Trex 4276648 to Melanie Jarson, Jean Robert, Mark DeCaval, DBA Frenchy Fresh, 3831 Edwards Road, Norwood, Ohio, 45239. I verbally spoke to various departments regarding this request. There were no objections. Respectfully submitted, Tim A. Brown, Secretary, Clerk of Council.
Mr. Sanker.
Question, Madam President. The location, 3831 Edwards, would that be in the old Lime facility?
And I think it's probably 45209 instead of 39. All of the zip codes over there are 45209. But yes, it is the old Lime Fresh, whatever it's called. So the way this works, for those of you who are new, is whenever there's a liquor license request, when it comes in, we send requests to the building, fire, police, and health departments, tax departments, to see if they have any objections, if there are any outstanding building orders or health orders or tax issues or anything like that, or any objections that the police or fire would have. And so Mr. Brown is referring to that he spoke to them verbally regarding the requests, so. This needs to, and if we objected to it, it needs to be postmarked by August the 1st, and with no other meeting, this will be our last opportunity. Mr. Sanker.
Yes, Madam President, just another note on this particular license. This is actually being requested to transfer into the city of Norwood from Hamilton, and typically this is a Trex transfer, and a Trex transfer is one of which it doesn't go through the typical liquor license transfer procedures. What I mean is that it can come into an economic development area for a business as long as the council or the mayor or the administration approves the transfer. Years ago, Norwood had a concentrated effort to reduce the amount of liquor license in certain areas because we had a heavy concentration of liquor license throughout the city. The Trex law on the state of Ohio's books is there to help spur economic development. And in this case here, it's going into an economic development area, replacing the Lime restaurant over in that area there. Typically, these Trex licenses come in and they stay in that particular area from one owner to another. But you just have to be careful that if this particular individual, once he decides if he would want to sell this to somebody who wants to open up a bar on Hopkins Avenue, then it would have to be reconsidered. But it's a Trex license, meaning it can transfer in with just the council's approval, and not necessarily into economic development areas, and not necessarily go through the process of limiting how many liquor licenses are permitted per capita within the city. Typically, liquor licenses are bought and purchased from one other establishment within the community. For instance, if there's a bar on Montgomery Road who's closing, they can put their liquor license up for sale, and typically a business like this particular one who wants to move in there, that would be the primary source of a liquor license to go to that individual and keep it within the community. The Trex process kind of bypasses that because, and for two reasons. One, the individual who's selling it from outside of Norwood, he may be selling that particular license, I don't know, say for $1, where somebody within the city, if they have a liquor license and an establishment they want to sell, they may be wanting $5 for it. So with this guy may just want to get rid of it. So typically, Trex licenses are usually used when there aren't any other licenses available within the city. I don't know at this point in time how many are typically available right now, if there are some for sale, but usually that would be the process. You would buy it from another establishment. The Trex kind of bypasses that process, and it's designed for economic development. So being this is going into that project over there, I would recommend that the transfer be approved.
That's a motion.
Yes,
Receive and
Madam
file and
President.
approve. Seconded by Mr. Mumper. Is there any discussion? Mr. Mumper?
Yeah, I guess people have noticed that who this fellow is young there, Mark Lavelle, who's kind of a famous chef in the Cincinnati area.
Yep.
Really over in
That's what this is. Very nice.
Fresh.
Is there any other discussion? The motion on the floor is to receive and file a letter and to approve the transfer of the license. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hanahan.
Yes.
Mr. Sanker.
Yes.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. The next is a letter from Keith Moore regarding administrative report and the executive session.
Dear Mr. Brown, I would like to give an administrative report from the Law Department with a request that council go into executive session to discuss imminent court action and potential sale of public property at competitive bidding at the next council meeting, July 12th, 2016. I hope this email will suffice. Thank you. Keith D. Moore, Norwood Law Director, City of Norwood.
Mr. Clark.
I move that we receive and file and go into executive session to discuss imminent court action, the potential sale of public property.
Seconded by Mr. Blair. Is there any discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hannerhan.
Yes.
Mr. Senker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. We will be going into executive session. The only thing we can discuss is the potential court action and potential sale of public property. So we ask that everyone leave, and if you close the door. We will come back into session after the executive session, but the only thing left on the agenda is to adjourn. So we will go into executive session. We are back out of executive session and we're back into the regular session of council. We have no absent members to excuse. Mr. Mumper.
I move we adjourn.
Seconded by Mrs. Hannerhan. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Bonzall.
Yes.
Mr. Clark.
Yes.
Mrs. Stickley.
Yes.
Mr. Blair.
Yes.
Mrs. Hannerhan.
Yes.
Mr. Senker.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mumper.
Yes.
All members present voting aye, the motion carries. This meeting is hereby adjourned.